In a previous video, I showed you how I was starting to make homemade citrus scented vinegar 3 ways. Well, today I wanted to come back and give you a little update on how it's going. Hi, sweet friends. I'm Mary, and welcome to Mary's Nest. I'm a former New York City girl, now living the simple life with my husband here in the Texas Hill Country. And this channel is all about cooking from scratch, natural living, and creating a cozy home with charming thrift store finds. So if you're like me and you want to live the simple life, subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to click on the little notification bell below. That'll let you know every time I upload a new video. Now, if you saw my previous video, I made one vinegar the old-fashioned way, where you're actually making vinegar from scratch. And I've just got some orange peels in here and some water. And then in this second jar, again, I'm just making vinegar the old-fashioned way. I had some sort of misshapen oranges. So here I actually have the whole fruit that's cut up, and I'm making vinegar. And then this was the third way, where I actually am just making a scented vinegar, in the sense that I took white distilled vinegar and just added a bunch of I think they were mandarin orange peels, but something in the orange family. And so I wanted to give you an update after about a week. I wanted to show you what's going on. Now, I don't know if you'll be able to see this, but if I shake it a little, you might be able to see that there are bubbles rising in it, and it's beginning to ferment. Now, let me let you know how the fragrance is. It still smells quite orangey, and I'm not smelling too much vinegar, but it's only been about a week. And normally in the past, when I've made homemade vinegars with other things like apples and strawberry scraps and things like that, I have not gotten a vinegary smell. And if anything, it starts to smell as it's going through sort of the 30-day, it takes about 30 days. So as it's going through the 30-day process, it almost sometimes takes on a very yeasty, almost like a beer-like smell. And then it goes into the vinegar smell. So that's a good little tip to know if you're doing this at home. But yes, it's becoming a little fizzy, a little bubbly, and overall I think it's doing great. Now, since this is still bubbling and a little fizzy, I'm not going to add the extra 1/4 cup of sugar. And I'm actually thinking, because the oranges have so much natural sugar in them, even the peels to a certain extent, I'm starting to think, it doesn't seem like it may actually need that extra 1/4 cup of sugar. And as you remember in the other video, how I started this, because in the beginning I said just orange peels and water, actually you add a 1/4 cup of white sugar just to give the yeast and the bacteria a little something to get busy feeding on. But it's quite bubbly, and so I'm not going to add that extra 1/4 cup of sugar. I'm just going to watch it and see if it needs it over the next few days. But there's no mold forming, nothing like that. And if you do start to see, sometimes if things aren't submerged enough, there may be a little mold starting to form on the top. But something that was very interesting that I learned from Heidi at Rain Country Homestead, she said that if a little mold forms on top, she doesn't worry about it. She just stirs it and kind of pushes it down, and usually as the bacteria is taking over and turning this into vinegar, it just eats that right up and it goes away. I don't know for sure. I've never had a problem with mold, but I'll put a link to her channel. I'll see if I can find that video where she talks about that. Now, these aren't 100% submerged, but I want to see if you can see how I'm going to shake this. I hope you can see how this is bubbling. I'm not sure if it'll show up on camera, but the bubbles are coming up quite a bit, and you might see a little bit of foam forming on the top. And speaking about mold, I stir mine every day, and I know Heidi has really started doing that too, and it's actually where I learned it from her, to stir it every day really helps the fermentation process and sort of speeds up it becoming vinegar. And the nice thing about stirring it every day, you're submerging any pieces that may have not been submerged the day before, and that just really seems to prevent any problems of mold developing. At least for me, I've not had any develop. So that's a good tip, to remember if you don't mind having to stir this every day. But as with the citrus peels, this is also quite bubbly, and it seems to be coming along quite nicely. Oh, and I forgot to tell you, the aroma is lovely, still quite orangey. I'm not smelling any vinegar yet. But because it is quite bubbly and it seems to be doing well, I'm not going to add that 1/4 cup of sugar. Okay, now this is interesting. And this, as you might recall from the previous video on this, I learned about this concept from my friend Alicia over at Moat Cottage. She has a lovely, lovely YouTube channel. And she just takes white distilled vinegar and then she puts whatever she wants in it to scent it with. Citrus peels, flowers, whatever the case may be. And this is interesting. The citrus peels have taken on, quite a bit of an off color from being soaked in the distilled white vinegar. But the fragrance, I've got to say, if you've ever smelled distilled white vinegar, it's very strong, very vinegary. But this, with all of these citrus peels soaking in it, and it's just been a week, it's fantastic. I really like this. And now, granted, you're not technically making vinegar, but you're definitely scenting it. And the nice thing is, I think if you were to buy some vinegar cleaner that was scented like this, it could be pretty costly, but distilled white vinegar is very inexpensive. And basically you're using some citrus peels that may have been thrown out or put in the compost pile, and instead we're putting them in here and scenting this. This is going to make a really lovely cleaning product. Well, that's it for my vinegar update, but if you'd like more information on making vinegar, be sure to subscribe to my channel and then click on this video over here where I walk you through all the steps on how to make homemade vinegar. Love and God bless.